And part of that is so we can share this with you afterwards. Amelia, please take me to the next slide. A few bits of housekeeping before we get started. You can go ahead and start introducing yourselves in the chat. Some of you might know each other already, so say hello. Let us know what you're excited to learn about AI today, or if there's an AI program that you already love using, we'd like to hear that too. You can also select an interpretation channel. There's a little globe at the bottom of your screen. And if you're on mobile, you'll have to go to the ellipses, the three dots, to find that. So please get on the English, French, or Spanish channels. And we are recording this session so that we can send all of this knowledge to you afterwards. I am Alex Shannon, the Deputy Coordinator of Agenda for Change. I run the Women in WASH side of the mentorship program, and I am doing the welcome and introduction right now. You can see the agenda here, which we will go through in more detail over the course of the session. Next slide. And I am going to very quickly hand it over to the team who are joining us today from WASH AI. And the next slide is for them to introduce themselves. Oh, sorry, our expected outcomes. Today, we are hoping that you're going to learn what AI really is, explore a little bit about how you can use it, and also get your questions answered by some experts. We want to note that today is meant to be a foundational session. So this is actually going to be the base session, and we will build on some of the knowledge that you take forward here on a second session, which is going to happen in the beginning of July. So keep that in mind as you're learning today. Some of this might be new and some of this might be repetitive, but we're trying to get everyone to the same level. Next slide. And now I will hand it over to the team at WASH AI and they can take us forward from here. I don't know if it's Chaiwei or Solen, but please feel free to jump in.
Thank you, Alec. I'll start with an introduction and then the team can also, clearly my face is
Chaiwei,
the
I
first
don't
one on the
think we
screen.
can hear
So
you.
just
I
go ahead.
see you are
Oh, okay.
trying to say something, but I don't think the audio is working. Or is it just
Are
mine?
you on the channel, Solen? Make sure you're on a
I am not
interpretation
muted.
channel.
So...
I can hear you, Chaiwei.
Yeah,
Oh,
we can hear
Can
you.
others thumbs up
Okay.
with your emojis if you can hear? I can hear Chaiwei.
Perfect.
Okay.
Can everybody else? I hope everybody else can.
perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, well, so I'll introduce myself. My name's Chaiwe Mshaoko. There's another name in there, Sanuser, but happy to go with just Chaiwe. I'm based in Zambia, Lusaka, but at the moment I just arrived in Nairobi for a very interesting engagement. That said, maybe a bit of where I'm coming from. So I'm a consultant. In Zambia, I run my own organization. It's called CADEV, Catalyst Development. And I'm working in this team very closely with Solane and Olivier, and mainly focusing on the localization and country focus when it comes to AI, and particularly WASH AI. As we well know, the WASH sector is also a very key critical sector in social development. And as a result, AI as a modern tool cannot be left behind in this sector. So this is one of the things that I do, and innovation is something that flows through my veins, and that's why I'm in this beautiful team. And I'm looking forward to this conversation this afternoon, or depending on where you are in the world, morning, night, you name it. Yeah, that's all. I guess I'll hand over to Soleil.
Merci, merci Chaiwei. Alors, moi, je suis Solène Pradapaz, également consultante. Je suis basée en France et puis je travaille sur différents projets, presque intégralement dans la WASH humanitaire, mais pas seulement, aussi sur des questions socioculturelles dans la petite campagne où j'habite. Et aujourd'hui, je travaille chez Baobab Tech principalement sur le suivi des partenariats On a des super structures avec qui on travaille depuis peu ou depuis quelques mois déjà, qui sont très intéressées par les questions d'IA, particulièrement dans le domaine de la WASH. Et voilà, j'essaie également de soutenir l'aspect linguistique de la plateforme, faire en sorte qu'on propose la WASH AI à différentes langues pour être sûr voilà, qu'elle puisse être utilisée par plus de personnes en étant toujours d'aussi bonne qualité. Et je m'occupe également de l'aspect genre de cette plateforme. Vous allez voir que c'est un aspect qui est absolument intéressant et important qu'on prenne en compte. Donc voilà, bienvenue dans cette session. On est très heureux de voir autant d'entre vous participer. On sait que c'est un sujet qui amène beaucoup de curiosité et tant mieux. Donc voilà, je laisse la main à Olivier qui va se présenter également.
Thanks. I just noticed that maybe not everyone's on the right audio channel to get their translation in there. So I don't know if there's any instruction that needs to be provided to help everyone.
Yeah, for those that came in late, please use the globe on the bottom of your screen, and it should have 3 channels, English, French, or Spanish. So if you're not understanding Solène, it's because you're on the wrong channel. Please do that now while Olivier continues. Excuse me, Olivier.
Thanks. Yeah, no worries. No, just brief. I'm Olivier. I'm the founder of Baobab Tech, and I'm here today really just to support Chaiwei and Selen in this presentation. Very excited to be able to support this part of the sector. And yeah, founded Baobab Tech a couple of years ago to focus on how we can implement AI in a very practical way and focusing on the wash sector as one of the areas that we work in, which is also a technical background that I have.
Ok, je pense qu'il va y avoir un petit sondage qui va être partagé, voilà, super sur Zoom. Certains d'entre vous ont déjà répondu à cette question, ou en tout cas ont partagé avec nous leur avis, leur expérience un petit peu sur l'IA et surtout sur ce qu'ils et elles souhaitaient comprendre, apprendre pendant cette session. Mais là, l'idée de ce petit sondage qu'on vous partage, c'est un petit peu de comprendre votre expérience, là où vous en êtes, et également comment vous ressentez tout ce qui se passe autour de l'IA. On sait que c'est quand même un sujet qui apporte parfois vraiment des questionnements, du stress, et c'est tout à fait légitime. On voulait un petit peu savoir où vous en étiez pour aussi, voilà, choisir un petit peu comment est-ce qu'on vous le présentait et quelles questions, vous vous posez auxquelles on va essayer de répondre pendant cette session. À savoir qu'à la fin de cette session, il y aura un temps, de questions-réponses. Donc si vous avez des questions concrètes, vous pouvez les envoyer dans le chat, mais vous pouvez aussi les garder et nous les poser de vive voix, dans environ 40 minutes. Est-ce que c'est possible, Alec, de garder le sondage ouvert et de passer tout de même à la suite des slides?
Yeah, it should be doable. We have a second poll that I'm supposed to launch for this though. As in
Ok, donc
it's not the same poll. So we should end one to start the other.
Sounds good. Je vois que 35 personnes, 100% ont répondu. Donc super, on va pouvoir avancer. On a vraiment des réponses différentes, c'est super. Pas toutes les personnes ont les mêmes expériences, ne se sentent pas de la même manière face au sujet de l'IA, donc tant mieux. Ok, super. Je pense qu'on peut passer à la slide suivante. Parfait. Bon, en guise d'introduction, on voulait revenir sur vraiment le b.a.-ba de l'IA. Où en sommes-nous? Qu'est-ce que c'est? À quoi ça ressemble? Comment le définir? Et donc, si on passe à la slide suivante, on voulait éviter de vous définir l'IA d'une manière très générale parce qu'elle existe sous différentes formes. l'intelligence artificielle. Et donc, tout à l'heure, on va plutôt essayer de définir différents systèmes d'IA qui existent. Aujourd'hui, en 2025, je pense que c'est plus ou moins impossible de ne jamais avoir entendu parler d'IA et aussi de ne pas l'avoir utilisé plus ou moins dans nos sociétés là où la plupart d'entre nous habitons. Euh, Certains d'entre nous, on l'utilise même sans trop nous en rendre compte parce qu'ils font partie des outils, des applications, des objets qu'on utilise au quotidien. Alors voilà une liste non exhaustive pardon, d'applications sur lesquelles on voit l'utilisation de l'IA grandir. Alors tout d'abord, la reconnaissance vocale et faciale, on l'utilise pour débloquer nos téléphones, pour appeler quelqu'un, pour en fait utiliser l'IA qui va ensuite prendre en compte ce qu'elle a reconnu et mener à un autre service. Voilà un premier exemple. Un deuxième, c'est tout ce qui va être recommandation. Donc là, on parle plutôt de l'IA qui va utiliser un historique de recherche, d'achat, des informations à propos de nous pour pouvoir nous faire des recommandations, également d'achat la plupart du temps. Donc c'est évidemment lié à la publicité, par exemple. On retrouve une grande utilisation de l'IA également dans tout ce qui va être traduction, avec voilà, des technologies de traduction en ligne qui passent d'un langage à un autre très rapidement. Et enfin, pour tout ce qui va être planification de trajets, par exemple, et de la cartographie, c'est voilà, des usages qui sont souvent basés sur un système d'intelligence artificielle. Voilà quelques exemples. Encore une fois, ce n'est pas exhaustif, mais je pense que ce sont des exemples qui peuvent parler à la plupart d'entre nous. Et on va pouvoir passer à la slide suivante où on va réellement aller voir différents systèmes. Euh, on va ici parler d'architecture de l'IA. Qu'est-ce qui se cache derrière un système d'IA et pourquoi est-ce qu'on va utiliser celui-ci plutôt qu'un autre? Alors, on vous en présente trois aujourd'hui. Le premier sur les prédictions, le deuxième sur les recommandations et le troisième, ça va être tout ce qui est IA générative, donc des modèles plus larges. Et c'est d'ailleurs sur ce troisième système qu'on va plutôt essayer de se concentrer sur le restant de notre session. Donc les premiers systèmes, ceux de prédiction, ils vont avoir tendance, donc les développeurs qui développent les algorithmes de l'IA de prédiction, à faire en sorte de minimiser les erreurs sur une base de data passée. Ça peut être des données de localisation, de date, des données météorologiques par exemple. Et sur cette base-là, ils vont essayer, ces algorithmes, de prédire ce qu'il va arriver par la suite, en essayant de minimiser l'erreur, c'est-à-dire avoir vraiment un taux de certitude le plus haut possible. Donc là, on cherche vraiment à prédire ce qu'il va arriver grâce à des données passées. Et deuxième système, sur les recommandations, donc je l'ai cité un petit peu plus tôt tout à l'heure sur l'autre slide, là, ici, l'IA va plutôt essayer de maximiser l'engagement, l'utilisateur et ses achats. Donc là, on est sur de l'apprentissage automatique avec des big data, des grosses données, où l'IA va plutôt essayer d'utiliser votre historique de recherche, votre historique d'achat, quelques critères démographiques, par exemple, votre genre, votre âge, là où vous habitez, ce dont vous pourriez avoir besoin, et vous proposer des outputs, des propositions voilà, d'achat et autres. Donc, c'est ce qu'on retrouve beaucoup dans la publicité, par exemple. Et enfin, le système génératif d'IA, enfin de d'IA générative, là basé sur le langage, on a plutôt des développeurs qui vont créer des modèles qui sont composés en fait de différents réseaux neurologiques avec des couches qui vont essayer de processer toutes les données qui sont données à cette IA. C'est-à-dire que ces différents réseaux vont travailler en tandem, donc vont aller chercher dans les différentes sources de données qui lui ont été, moi j'aime bien le terme nourri, vraiment l'impression qu'on nourrit le système pour sur la base d'un prompt, donc ce qu'on va lui demander, nous proposer une réponse. Donc, ouais, elle se limite en fait à ce qui a été nourri au modèle. Elle se base là-dessus. C'est vraiment tout ce tout ce qu'elle va aller, donc basé sur la question qu'on lui pose, elle va pouvoir simplement répondre dans la limite euh, de ces données qui lui ont été nourries en premier lieu. Voilà, j'espère que ces trois exemples de systèmes sont assez clairs Et comme je l'ai dit, à partir de maintenant, on va plutôt parler de modèles d'IA générative, même si dans le contexte de la WASH, vous allez voir, on va en parler d'un autre. Et je vais donner la main à Chai-Wei maintenant, qui va nous parler de systèmes d'IA, particulièrement pour la WASH.
Thank you, Solène. Thank you for that background. Yep, as mentioned, the WASH sector is also quite critical in benefiting from what WASH AI systems exist out there. So on this slide, we have some key points that look at what we are aiming to achieve. If the slide can move, mine's a bit stuck. Perfect. Thank you. So I'm giving an overview of what exactly the WASH sector can benefit with respect to WASH AI, with respect to AI more broadly. The first slide is looking at providing real-time insights into the WASH sector and the needs of the WASH sector. So AI gives us up-to-the-minute data that helps teams respond quickly to WASH issues. We know that the WASH sector can sometimes experience quite some emergency situations, particularly in the humanitarian settings. And as a result, we see that AI is very beneficial in monitoring of data. We can think about it as providing us data for sensor tracking of water quality, for example. So in a case where there is water pollution, we can get those sensors out there to give us real-time data on what's happening with water quality. This goes beyond just emergency. It also goes into what we are looking at in terms of sanitation sector, things like how latrines are being used or how toilets are being used. In other cases, getting us back to the water sector, it can give us information on water levels, especially around issues to do with droughts. And, Zambia is one of the countries that recently was heavily hit by the drought situation as a result of the El Nino conditions. And so some AI tools were quickly able to respond to some of those indications that were needed and necessary. For real-time data insights as well, mapping is quite critical. So we see AI, infrastructure also coming up, things like drones and satellites that are developed to capture images that quickly provide information on flood zones in flood-prone areas. And we know that as well, the El Nino in different regions of the African continent. In one region, we were experiencing drought in Zambia. Here I am in Kenya. They were experiencing floods. And so AI did support a lot of that mapping of these zones that were heavily hit by floods. It is able to also provide water points mapping. So we are quite familiar with M-Water. A lot of us are using it. And that in itself is an AI tool that has progressed quite significantly in supporting the sector's mapping needs. In other respects, it is quite critical in newcasting. So AI can predict where floods may happen in future or may happen in a few hours. It is helpful for disaster alerting or preparedness, and it gives us that firsthand in ensuring that we're able to provide quick response. With respect to automation or automating actions at scale, what AI can do is it does handle repetitive or big tasks that oftentimes need a lot of human resource and needs a lot of manpower on the ground. So it can bring about logistics optimizations, helping us plan better, delivering routes for water trucks, for example. How does a water truck move from one place to the other? Waste pickup, so it does give us that logistical support in where waste has been collected or not, or pit emptying, which pits have been emptied and which areas need a better servicing, especially in dense areas like Nairobi. Kibera is quite dense, and this is the kind of these are the kind of tools, AI tools, that can support that very quick response in terms of logistical needs and priorities. And then for waste collection in camps, this is particularly for the humanitarian settings, we've seen AI look at how much waste is being generated in these plants and also help with timely pickup of this waste. Moving on to the third slide, rather the third slot, application of AI in climate and communications tasks. We've seen AI supports communications quite strongly with aspects to do with content creation, which is one of my very favorite subjects, and reporting of WASH in the AI sector. So oftentimes technocrats do tend to be very, implementation focused, and sometimes these communication aspects can fall out. And we've seen that AI has come in quite strongly to support those needs at the institutional level, but also at the larger sector level. We don't often see teams in different organizations, different settings, have a dedicated communications person. And sometimes that role can be supported by AI. So we've seen AI support image and audio creation, auto generation of informatics, for example, and voice messages, even in longer language, to provide hygiene education to target groups. We've seen text summarization, it's able to support that. So quickly turns long reports into digestible insights so that they can be packaged better and also shared better. It does support with proofreading and editing. I think these are some of the most common usages that we've seen so far. With the way that WASH AI is evolving. So it polishes WASH reports or proposals, particularly when we look at, donors and their needs. I think some donors or some funders may have very strict reporting needs. And sometimes that, fallback tool is quite necessary to support that reporting. Info retrieval, we've seen chatbots that can help staff find SOPs, policy documents without needing to go through document by document, searching on Google, looking at archives. AI is able to augment all that information and package it for easy retrieval. And then fact checking, AI can scan documents to ensure that data is accurate. So it will, investigate different data sources and really give an output or outcome on what these sources are really revealing, whether they are accurate or not. Moving on to the next, predicting the future. I think this has already been touched on a little bit, but I would love to say with respect to forecasting that it anticipates demand for water. What are the needs that may come out of a certain community in terms of the water needs? Given a drought, we know that maybe area A needs this amount of water versus area B. Yes, we've seen that AI is able to do that. In times of cholera outbreaks, we know where the cholera trends will come out stronger based on certain parameters, or how latrine use rather affects some of these key trends. With respect to risk estimation, we've seen that it's able to predict the likelihood or severity of issues like floods and droughts. And these are quite critical at the moment because these are really challenges that we've had currently in the sector, especially on the African continent. We've seen real world examples of AI predicting flood risk globally. And I mentioned this specifically with respect to the African continent. Sorry, my is also pinging in the background. I think the team is busy, but I'll keep going. Community prediction models, localization, for example, of AI models can support citizens to use data better. So as mentioned in my introduction, I'm a localization expert. And so when we talk about AI and localization, this is sort of what we want to see. We want to see this AI applicable or apply at community level. What kind of community level predictions can we make? What kind of community level, local level needs does AI help us address? So these are the kind of things that we hope that AI can also support the sector in and support the different context in. With respect to targeting, we are looking at two main points there. So resource efficiency, we have to think, or AI rather helps us think through water allocation during droughts. AI models can reduce waste, so we can see AI again predict what sort of resource recovery we can take on, what we can model out, say from the use of sanitation waste. So we know how much waste we're generating, and as a result, we know what sort of resource recovery we can get out of it. In our case in Zambia, we've been using a lot of this sanitation waste for the generation of, a soil amendment. And those quantities can easily be predicted with Wash AI, rather with AI generally, or AI tools. And then smart borehole drilling, again, I think this is quite critical. We've mainly been faced with dry boreholes in cases where predictive technology is not used. And we know and we've seen that AI has also advanced to allow for better predictions, to allow for better assessments on where targeted drilling is based. And then finally, personalization and localization. I think, again, this is a topic dear to my heart. So AI tailors tools and services to fit the local context. We see chatbots and advice tools that deliver hygiene tips or connect users to nearby services. And I think this is really working very nicely in countries like Kenya, where we're seeing chatbots engage with customers. They're able to advise a customer where a service is, and you don't necessarily need an individual at the back of a phone call to be able to address a client, for example. And then obviously that translates into quite a lot of savings from a point of view of cost saving. Then translation of voice tools, it's useful in training, outreach, or multilingual settings. Like this particular conversation we're having, or this particular meeting we're having. We know that an AI tool is behind the voices that we're hearing. We're able to hear something in French and hear something in English. So that predictive multilingual approach has also been one of the things that is supported by AI tools that are progressive. I can move on to the next slide. Thank you. I think this is just a case example, so I won't speak to this one too long, but this just shows us what has been going on with respect to levels of, I think I can't see the full screen fully, so let me just switch back to my own. Yeah, so this is showing us what flood levels or flood risks look like. And you can see the colors there ranging from extreme levels to normal levels in terms of flood risks over a period of time. And this is just an example of an AI tool that is demonstrating predictions of potential disasters or catastrophes in the sector. We can move on to practical use of AI. And the next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So with respect to AI in action, just a few comments on common tasks that we can, work with as we pilot some AI tools. I think some of the critical aspects that we can tap into, knowing that I shared quite a lot of what AI tools can do, this is more or less, your best picks per se. What can you do with the basic knowledge that you may have with respect to what AI tools can support you with? So we can start with summarization. So with summarization, this is basically just an approach that would allow you to condense long reports as you do your work. We've seen AI supporting minutes of meeting. It supports the development of articles into concise versions. And I think, a lot of us know ChatGPT. I think, it's one of the most basic ones out there. So it's able to support that aspect. Categorization is also one familiar one. So automatically sort and classify content, data, and responses. So for the sanitation sector, for example, We have categorization of sanitation-related complaints and types, and you're able to see what kind of complaints you're getting, whether it's something that is quite critical and immediately needs that response, or something that can be reported to later. So that categorization is definitely possible. And also can be done with a tool like ChatGPT, for example, or Perplexity, or others. I think the team will also get into a bit more details when Olivier comes in to share some of the tools available for use. Then research and synthesis. It helps quickly gather, review, and combine relevant information from multiple sources. This could be synthesizing of case studies of drought response across sub-Saharan Africa. So we've seen that it can bring together case studies, and that's why it is critical, because oftentimes we may have case studies sitting in different areas, and to be able to amalgamate that and put it together and compare, do a comparative analysis does take a lot of time and effort, but it is one of the low-hanging fruits to be able to really focus on that synthesis, as well as what you can get out of the different case studies in terms of research. I'm looking at simplicity. So with respect to simplicity, we know that it's able to explain complex content into simpler terms for different audiences. And I'll recognize that we have mentees and mentors in this group today. And so maybe some mentors, or rather mentees, are coming in very new in the sector. So oftentimes it is quite challenging for, this complex content, complex terminology that the wash sector has. And so the AI tools can support that simplification. Or otherwise, sometimes data is collected in different ways. It's collected from a very technical point of view. Data can be very, very heavy and packaged in a way that it is just data. And that simplification would rather translate into summarization of that data, or packaging it in a different way that it is able to be better interpreted by the user. And then answering of questions. So with this one, we know that the sector does offer us a lot of questions sometimes. And yes, AI tools do support with specific questions that can be fed to it. For example, who are the World Health Organizations, or what are the World Health Organization's guidelines for household water treatment in emergencies? A question like that can be responded to. Particularly general AI tools do support, but I must make a special mention to Wash AI, because when you're looking at Wash AI as a tool specific to this sector, you're looking at a tool that is augmenting different sources of data and interpreting them, and then giving you the best outcome from a sector point of view. Because as mentioned by Solène earlier, AI tools have to be fed information for them to interpret. So Wash AI is a tool that taps into sector data and gives you exactly what you're looking for. So yes, definitely AI tools can answer to key critical questions that sector persons can share. With respect to brainstorming, it's able to generate a list of ideas, options, and innovations. And like I mentioned earlier, I love to innovate. So sometimes if you want to rethink through certain things, you want to, think through what a behavior change communication theme should look like for a school, for example, and you have no idea where to start. These days, AI is there to answer your questions. You don't need a room full of colleagues to support that ideation. And then 7, key takeaway extraction. So it does give you highlights of some of the things that may be specific to different country contexts. So if you're trying to compare key themes, it will give you key takeaways from these different key themes. I think just 2 more translation. I think, this goes without, and it was mentioned previously. AI tools also act as translators. And as mentioned, depending on what tool you're using or what tool you're subscribing to, some tools are better at translation than others. What we're doing as well at Barbertech with Wash AI, for example, is we are deliberately bringing in translators that are supporting this language diversity, especially at the local context. Languages like Kiswahili, are very common in Africa. But beyond that, at the very local level, you hear of languages like Bemba or Nyanja that are not very typical. And so these AI tools are also being coached to bring about that ease in terms of translation at the very local level. And then finally, I speak to reasoning. So it's able to perform logic-based tasks such as decision support, comparisons, and trade-off analysis. And I think, we also have to be careful. It is Wash AI. It will support you with this decision making, but you have to vet it and you have to be careful a little bit on what sort of decisions it is providing. But nonetheless, I think one of the key critical things that AI is able to produce or provide is that reasoning support. I will stop the slide here. And maybe we can move to the next slide very quickly. And for this one, because this is, well, it's an example, but I would like Olivier maybe to jump in here in case he has got one or two things to say about practical uses of AI.
So this was,
Thank you.
yeah, sure. This was just an example of the fact that AI, we often use it just to write maybe, a few words like the prompt there where I say something, but the reality is it's best used when you actually inject a lot of information in it, right? And so in this case, what I did is I copy pasted Agenda for Change's global strategy, because it's a very long document and I didn't want to read it all. And so what I did was I just pasted it in there and then I asked it to extract it. And that's just an example of extracting key information from information. So I could have, uploaded a couple of documents there, pasted other ones, and then again, ask something just to make it accessible. So that's just a very brief example how you talk to a document and make it a bit more understandable as well.
Super. Maybe before I take over on this very important topic of what could go wrong, could we kindly maybe refresh the presentation? I saw a couple of messages in the chat saying that participants can only see the speakers and not the slides so much. And just building up a bit of suspense for the next subject, which is on what could go wrong with using AI. Thank you, Emilia.
Make sure you're on interpretation channels, everyone. I'm seeing that people also can't hear, and the likely reason is because you're not assigned or
Okay, perfect.
something like that.
Thank you, Chaiwei and Olivier, for going over the different uses of AI. Je vais repasser en français maintenant pour parler des différents inconvénients qui peuvent avoir lieu lorsqu'on utilise de l'IA. Malheureusement, on est un petit peu en retard, donc je ne vais pas aller trop en détail sur chacun d'entre eux. Je pense que la plupart ne seront pas des surprises pour vous. On doit toujours faire très attention sur les réponses, les outputs que l'on reçoit des différentes plateformes, quelles qu'elles soient. Il y a des risques d'hallucination, donc de vraiment création de données fabriquées par l'IA. Il y a des risques de réponses qui pourraient être incomplètes, des réponses qui pourraient être incorrectes également. L'homogénéisation des données, parce que évidemment, même si on donne plusieurs sources de données à l'IA, finalement, lorsqu'elle répond, si elle ne peut pas être exhaustive, elle va avoir tendance à homogénéiser les résultats, en tout cas elle peut. La question des risques sur votre vie privée et les données que vous utilisez lorsque vous promptez une IA, c'est également très important. C'est d'ailleurs, il y a l'un d'entre vous qui a posé cette question lorsque vous vous êtes inscrit. Donc, merci d'avoir posé cette question, c'est très important. Et on sait que pas toutes les IA auront tendance à faire attention à ça. Donc, c'est aussi une question de choix de quelle plateforme on utilise et on va pouvoir détailler ça un petit peu plus tard. Également, la question des biais extrêmement importante et on va pouvoir passer à la slide suivante parce que j'aimerais vous parler notamment par le prisme du genre, des biais sociétaux qu'il existe dans l'IA. La technologie, on le sait, n'est pas neutre. Finalement, elle est créée par l'humain, donc elle va complètement illustrer, reprendre et amplifier les biais, les perspectives, aussi les coins d'ombre que peuvent avoir les développeurs qui créent les algorithmes. Et ça, c'est vraiment quelque chose à prendre en compte parce que, en fait, si on n'est pas critique là-dessus, on va avoir tendance à répliquer tous les biais qu'on va avoir par l'IA. Donc, le genre particulièrement, ça nous tient à cœur parce que on sait que les femmes sont complètement sous-représentées dans le domaine de la tech et particulièrement dans les questions d'IA et dans la création de machines et dans l'entraînement des intelligences artificielles. Donc, c'est très important. Malheureusement, les femmes sont tout autant présentes que les hommes au niveau licence dans la technologie, mais une fois qu'on est au niveau professionnel et sur le terrain, on est complètement sous-représenté. Donc, il faut prendre en compte que les modèles de langage très large, comme l'IA générative, euh, héritent complètement des biais et des inégalités sociétales des humains, comme le sexisme par exemple, puisqu'elles sont basées sur de l'information faite par les humains. On vous a détaillé ici quelques exemples très concrets qui vont peut-être vous parler sur des erreurs qu'ont pu faire des IA basées sur ces biais-là. On sait par exemple que les systèmes de reconnaissance faciale ou vocale font plus d'erreurs lorsqu'elles essayent de reconnaître des visages ou des voix de femmes ou de personnes racisées. On sait aussi que les algorithmes qui vont traiter des CV pour employer des personnes vont avoir tendance à discriminer les femmes. Enfin bref, voilà. Il y en a deux autres. Comme on est un petit peu en retard, on va passer à la prochaine slide, mais on voulait vraiment vous inviter à être critique là-dessus et être vraiment conscient de ces biais-là et du fait qu'ils existent. Donc, Emilia, si tu veux bien passer à la prochaine slide, s'il te plaît, merci beaucoup. Maintenant, on n'est pas ici là pour vous dire qu'il ne faut pas utiliser l'IA et qu'il faut la boycotter ou
Sorry,
quoi que ce soit.
Solen, we're
Sinon, d'ailleurs,
having an
on n'aurait pas
interpretation
créé cette
issue.
session.
The
On
the
sait qu'il y a
French
ces biais,
speakers
on
are
sait qu'il y a
speaking
ces
over the
risques d'erreur.
Spanish.
Alors, comment
I
faire
don't know
pour,
Achille
si on veut
or
toujours utiliser
Apollinaire
l'IA, le
if you're
faire de manière
both
responsable?
interpreting.
Ici, vous voyez sur
I'm
votre
not
écran
sure. Are you
6
both
étapes
assigned
qui nous paraissent
to, are
cruciales
you
et qu'on
both
vous invite
speaking at the
vraiment
same
à
time?
faire à
Let me
chaque fois que
reassign you
vous voulez
quickly.
utiliser l'IA.
I'm
Ce sont
sorry
6
all for the
questions
technical
ou 5
difficulties,
plutôt
but I'm
questions
trying
et une
to ensure
information
that we're
que vous
inclusive for
pouvez vous
everyone.
poser à chaque fois que vous êtes sur le point d'ouvrir une application
So let
d'IA.
me make sure we have Spanish, French,
Pareil, je
and
pense qu'elles sont
French.
assez,
Okay.
enfin, ce serait
I'm
assez
I'm
évident pour vous
redoing the
de
interpretation.
comprendre
I don't know if
ce
it's
qu'on
gonna.
voulait dire derrière, mais tout d'abord se poser la question de ce qu'on a réellement besoin d'une IA pour accomplir la tâche qu'on cherche à accomplir. Également, quel serait l'impact environnemental d'en utiliser une plutôt que de faire une simple recherche sur un moteur de recherche, ou bien d'en parler à notre équipe, ou bien d'aller chercher son N+1 ou son collègue pour en parler directement. Également, se poser la question des risques et des impacts d'utiliser l'IA pour cette tâche-là. On sait que pour les tâches très simples, par exemple de la réécriture d'email, le risque est très très bas qu'il y ait des erreurs ou qu'en tout cas ces erreurs mènent à des impacts tangibles. Mais il y a beaucoup plus de risques dès qu'on parle de tâches complexes et encore plus lorsqu'on cherche à prendre des décisions avec l'output de l'IA. On veut aussi parler de prompt parce que c'est absolument crucial que l'on sache parler à la machine. C'est dommage parce que on a eu accès aux plateformes d'IA bien avant d'apprendre à lui parler. Et donc, malheureusement, aujourd'hui, on a tendance à avoir un usage de l'IA qui n'est pas forcément très, très pertinent parce que le prompt n'est pas correct. Et là, on vous invite vraiment à essayer d'être le plus exhaustif possible dans votre question à l'IA, dans ce que vous cherchez, lui donner du contexte, vraiment expliquer au maximum, notamment en prenant en compte que un prompt qui va être très long vous permettra d'avoir une réponse qualitative et plutôt très bonne bien plus rapidement que si vous promptez très rapidement la machine en une seule phrase et que derrière vous devez de nouveau la prompter 2 ou 3 ou 4 fois pour qu'elle remplisse et qu'elle complète sa réponse. Donc voilà, très important. Et ensuite, voilà, vous également être critique des retours que vous allez avoir de l'IA, ne pas oublier les différents biais, différents risques dont on a parlé. Et un dernier petit point, mais vous le savez déjà certainement, c'est que si l'outil est gratuit, c'est certainement qu'on est le produit. Et donc, être un petit peu plus critique et un petit peu plus peut-être sur l'attention face à l'IA si c'est une plateforme qui vous est faite accessible gratuitement. On peut passer à la slide suivante. On avait un petit exercice de prompting à vous faire, mais malheureusement, on n'aura pas le temps. Mais vous pouvez le faire chez vous, il n'y a aucun souci. Vous avez 4 exemples de prompts sur l'écran et vous pouvez essayer de les rendre plus compréhensibles, plus exhaustives selon vous. N'hésitez pas à mettre vos réponses dans le chat si vous voulez ou à essayer cet exercice de manière autonome. Et je vais donner la main à Olivier qui va maintenant vous présenter différents types d'outils. On sait aussi que c'était des questions que vous aviez posées lorsque vous vous êtes inscrit sur la session, et également vous présenter une petite démo que vous pouvez faire en posant la même question, le même prompt à plusieurs IA, essayer de voir comment est-ce qu'elles répondent. Donc Emilia, on peut passer à 2 slides plus loin, et puis Olivier, c'est à toi. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I think there's another slide, just the next one. We're skipping that one for now. And so what we wanted to do is really get really briefly into, I should make sure people can hear me because there were some issues before. We're all good. Looking at, there are so many models out there. I think if I can, I'm going to share my screen here. There are so many models out there, and of course, you're all familiar with ChatGPT, and it's quite unfortunate, I would say, because ChatGPT was the first to the market, but they're definitely not the best. And I'm not a fan of their policies in terms of their ethics and how they're growing as a company. But yet here we are. They are the most known one, just because they were in the market first. So one thing that, so I won't go into using all of these, but I wanted you just to quickly have a look at this, and you can try it in your own time. Nowadays, a lot of these chatbots have tools and the ability to, for example, search the web. And I think that's just one thing that I always want to emphasize is the difference between asking, explain sanitation in Kenya in 50 words. If I just do that, it's now they're smarter. They will think, oh, I should probably search the web for that. In the past and in some other apps, they won't actually do that at all, and they will just come up with whatever they've been trained on. In this case, what they're doing is they're now automatically doing some searches for you, and you would think this is great. The challenge is like, why are they picking a Guardian article? Like, what has that got to do? Like, just because these articles are ranked higher in their search, they're suddenly appearing here. So this is not a domain specific, and a lot of these chatbots are not very domain specific in that they're not specialized in areas, whereas they'll just tap into the full internet, and whoever's got their website the best ranked, for example, that would be the equivalent of showing up on page 1 on Google, then they're most likely to appear. And then so suddenly the truth becomes whoever's the most ranked on their website on the internet with search engines. And so that's one of the biggest risks of these new toolings. They're great because they're grounded in reality, but they are also limited to the fact that the website has a good ranking in Google. So keep that in mind when you activate some of these different tools that are available out there. Another one is Claude. So Claude is from Anthropic. Again, same idea. They all offer tools. Now they're starting to do connectors where you can connect your Drive, your web. You can use extended thinking, which just means that it's going to spend some time. Another one, so the Quen models, this is from China. Again, they have the ability to search and think. So here we can, for example, I'll show you what thinking means. And the thinking means that just the model itself will take some time to actually spell out loud what it's doing. And it's quite funny to read if you actually take the time to do it. It'll literally just output a response, not really a response, but it'll output its thinking process just so that it can organize the information before it actually gives you the answer, which is here below. So this thinking process here is kind of like think of it as a pre-answer that's happening now. And these are these reasoning models where they'll spend time spitting out a thought process and then providing you with an answer and a bunch of resources. So generally the quality of that is higher, is to use these thinking models there. So this is Quen. Mistral, the French model, that one is, what I like about Mistral is that even though the quality of the tool is not as good, as in the model is not as powerful as the other ones, they do run their servers in Sweden, which means they're using renewable energy, and there are much lesser environmental impact. They also have tools like web search as well as Canvas, which allows you to write out documents. You can also have your own libraries where you can create a library where you can add a whole bunch of documents and do some work and some research there as well. Keep in mind, all these tools are, you have to pay for them. They have a free version, but when you use the free version, everything you put in there, pretty much they're using for training their own models. So So that's just something to keep in mind, that it might be worth paying for that. And I think that's also part of the reason why we're building Wash AI, is because we recognize not everyone can afford paying $20 a month just for an AI tool. So another tool, a bit more advanced now, is Perplexity. Perplexity, we'll give you the full list of these tools in the chat or in the report. Perplexity provides a much more advanced research capabilities. So if you turn on research mode, this can take up to 2 or 3 minutes, where it's doing multiple web searches, multiple analysis. But it also allows, again, for that search. You can also do academic search. It'll look in journals. Social search, it'll look in what's called Reddit, which is a social media platform where people give their opinion. So you can have it look at multiple sources. And that's Perplexity. One specifically focused on academic research is Consensus. Consensus is when I say, for example, let's do cholera response mechanisms. It's probably a bad question here, but what this does is just to show you that it's only looking into published academic papers. And so here you can see it's basically really just referring to, Journal of Immunology and Bio. Like, this is not just standard web stuff. This is only, and then it will provide you with an analysis in, again, from those sources. So really just academically focused only. There are other tools. This one has become more and more popular in u.com, whereas they're, again, very good at really spending a lot of time doing research mode. So it'll do, and I won't run it because it can take sometimes up to 10 to 12 minutes to run the full research. But again, it's basically what we call agent work, where it will go in and deep dive into the web and find things for you there. And then back to us. So with Wash AI, we've built a tool that really is focused on focusing on the wash sector there. And so one example of a tool that we launched is Wash Pulse, which, for example, months. So we can look at, for example, menstrual hygiene updates. And what this is doing is really looking at sector information and sector news. And it will go across, provide you a summary of what's been done. So this is really more about news and updates. And then it will dig in, again, providing references to what's been going on there. So that's just a tool from Wash AI. And the difference with this kind of tool versus the other research tool is that we really have it focused on Wash content, and not just give it access to the full web, which can sometimes be what we call noisy, in that it's getting access to a whole bunch of information that might not be verified or accurate. So that's that. Finally, I wanted to show you so in the Baobab Tech, if you go to solutions and demos, we can share the link here. We built one specific tool where we're comparing different AI models. So if you want to give it a try, we'll share this link. And we've got some examples here, but basically you can write one prompt and then it will ask 5 different bots to generate that response. And what we want to illustrate with that is, for example, examine the role of gender in the impacts of climate change and access and wash services. I'm going to run it. And what I'm doing in this little tool, it runs the same prompt against 5 different models here. So you can compare. It takes a minute because it's doing it across all of them. So you've got this bot. There's all the same, like it's their own responses to exactly the same question. And so what you can do is if you click on on the bottom right, if I can get this out of the way. There, if you click on this little icon, it will show you which model it is at the top here. So this bot A is Gemini by Google, very fast model. Bot B is, we did this one where we only gave it access to UNICEF material, so it's going to be pretty biased towards what UNICEF thinks. But C, we've used Sonnet, which is the one that I showed you, which is the Claude model, but we've actually introduced a bias. And so what you can see here is that someone can very easily build a tool on a very, very good model. But here you can see, while some claim climate change is really affects several factors beyond climate influence gender disparity. And so it's got this slight bias against climate change in here. And see, while weather patterns may be attributing much to climate simplifies the complex, so it's really like mischievous in terms of how it's bringing in the climate change bias. And all I had to do is use a very, very smart model, but just simply tell the model, hey, introduce a anti-climate bias. So we've got to be really careful with what's being built behind models. Sorry, and this was obviously on purpose, right? And then the last model is actually Perplexity, the one that what I showed you, which has a thinking process as well. So I'm not going to read in this. We don't have the time to look at it, but feel free to play. This is a free tool where you can put in a prompt, run it, and then have them see what all these different models out there will do to answer your question. I think I'll hand it back to Céline there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Olivier. I'm sure this maybe answered a few of your questions regarding which is the best tool to use. We actually don't have an answer to that. This is really based on what you need, what you're looking for, and what you'll be needing the outputs for. Maybe, Emilia, we can go back to the slides. There's actually the QR code and the link to access the demo page on the slides. And I think it's time for Q&A. So here, if you want to take a moment to screen the QR code or write the link in your research engine. So as I said, you gave us a bit of content when you signed up for this session. There was a question regarding what you hope or need the session to do, what you were hoping for, what you were hoping to learn, what you were hoping to get into during this session. And some of you answered with some very concrete stuff. So maybe if we jump a couple of slides forward, you'll see some of them. We actually answered some of the questions during the presentation, so we won't go back into this. But here are 3 of them that we did not talk about yet. So maybe I'll start with the environmental impacts of AI, especially on WASH, and then I'll head over the floor to my colleagues for the other 2 questions. It's a very interesting question, right? We know that the environmental and social impacts of AI is pretty terrible, and that we need to take it into account when we take decisions regarding which AI we use for what purpose. And regarding concrete numbers, we know that AI data centers are massive water consumers because they need to cool down the engines that are stored there. We know that 1 megawatt actually needs 26 million liters annually. To give you a bit of a scale, Google's data centers average about 2 million liters of water per day. So this is huge. And those, I mean, 2/3 of the new data centers, the ones that have been created since 2022, are located in areas where there's already high levels of water stress. So we're quite afraid of direct competition over resources because of data centers. Olivier mentioned Mistral's data centers being in Sweden and given special attention to where they're localized and their water consumption. So this is one of the elements we can take into account when we talk about responsible use of AI. And on a different topic, on waste, which is directly linked to WASH, we know that AI data centers produce huge electronic waste, which contain substances like mercury, copper, aluminium, that are very hardly recyclable. They can contaminate air, water, soil, and yes, they're not always recycled. So most of it ends up in landfills or in unofficial recycling sites. So it's one of the big environmental impact of AI is also about waste. Also, local environments once they're contaminated, they can contaminate water sources, for instance, and then sanitation systems that depend on those water sources also get impacted. And maybe not so much about WASH directly, but the social impact of this waste is also important to take into account. And we know that most of the waste is actually exported to lower income countries, where workers will dismantle the devices manually, not always with the security gear, exposing them to mercury and other harmful substances. So this is also to take into account. I think this is it for the first question. I don't know if Olivier or Chaiwei, you want to take over the other 2 questions?
Yeah, I'm just conscious of time. Just want to double check with the organizers how we're doing. And Alec?
if I understood well, I think the interpreters will remain with us for a few more minutes. So if we want to continue the Q&A for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, that's all right.
Okay. And so to answer the question on training AI, I think the one thing, depending on which space you're working, if you're working in predictive analytics, so when you're trying to build a model which focuses on prediction based on, for example, water quality or data that you have and you want to predict something, then you are going in to be in the space of training. But in most cases, when you're working with generative AI, so like a tool like Wash AI and the large language models like the tools that I demoed, you aren't actually doing a lot of training. What you're doing is simply using the capability of these models, which are general models. We call them generalist models because they're extremely competent in working with a lot of data. So you don't actually have to train some of the large language models. You can use them with your existing knowledge base if you want to process it. So you don't actually have to do much training. As for the data protection part, I think that's a really important question because a lot of people don't realize how much data they're giving away and how much they might be compromising people's privacy because they might be pasting in data, someone else's data into these AI tools, and you're essentially basically breaching someone else's privacy. So be very careful when you're pasting data into these chatbots. If you are paying for the tool, you can switch off, and some of the free tools, you can switch off the privacy option that says, you can use my data, but be very, very careful in pasting personal information in this, as well as information about people that you might be working, or communities that you might be working with. So again, try and focus on working with dedicated tools. At Wash AI, we absolutely keep all the data completely private. None of it is being shared, and no models are using your data to train their own models. So yeah, be very careful. If you're not paying for a tool, you're very likely giving away this data to them, and they're using it. So that's my short answers for that.
Amazing. I don't see other questions in the chat, or maybe one regarding programming and coding. Olivia, are there, do you recommend using AI for programming and coding? And if so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them are very, very good at helping you. For example, if you're trying to learn like R, or you're learning analytics, in the WASH sector, or simply basic coding, there are a lot of them are actually being improved and trained in that. So my favorite for coding is Claude and Tropic. I shared the links. It's one of the best in terms of being able to help you code out of the box. And I would say the way you should use it is not just write this program for me. It should be explain this code. Really use it to be your teacher and not just your teller of information. So I highly recommend to always add the word "please explain" at the end of everything, so that you can actually learn while you're doing.
Amazing. I like Denise's question regarding the recommendation to be polite with AI. I see it as an anthropomorphism for sure.
It actually is one, but it actually they've done studies and it does prove that it works better. I can't get into the detail, but there actually is a higher response to emotive language when you work with AI. So being saying like, you better do this or you will be punished, actually works better for some of the smaller models. And I can explain that offline if someone's interested why.
Amazing. I think we might end our session here. As we said, we'll have a second session on July 1st. So if you're available, make sure you register for that session too. We'll go into more concrete AI stuff related to your mentorship. So feel free to email us, to email Alec at End of Change, and to send some subjects in the chat that you're interested in knowing more about. It's been great to have you all on board. I think curiosity around AI and the wish to get to know more and to use it in a responsible and respectful way is very important. So thank you all for joining, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Emilia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.